Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into just one source, but it's a real head scratcher.
Yeah, it really is. It kind of throws a wrench into how we think about reviews, especially those big aggregate scores.
Exactly. We're looking at a news piece, really a review, about a brand new horror film called Bone Lake, an erotic thriller, actually.
And the core thing that, the conflict here is pretty stark.
Hmm.
It debuted with this amazing Rotten Tomatoes score, like near perfect,
93%.
right? Which shouts masterpiece,
Yes.
But the article reporting that score, it sounds way more skeptical, almost warning people off.
That's the mission today. We're using this one example, Bone Lake, this high score, kind of low prestige vibe to figure out what's going on. What's the gap between a big consensus score and maybe traditional critical thumbs up?
Okay, so let's lay out the basics first.
Yeah.
Bone Lake, directed by Mercedes Bryce Morgan, she did Spoonful of Sugar,
Oh, right. I remember that one.
and written by Joshua Friedlander. It played Fantastic Fest back in September 24.
And it's getting a wide release soon.
Yep, October 3rd, 2025. So it's hitting theaters.
Okay, and the score. Let's just sit with that for a second. It debuts on Rotten Tomatoes based on, what, 28 critics?
28 early reviews.
And it hits 93%. That is,
Yeah.
wow, that's massive. No audience score yet, obviously, but still.
93% puts it in some seriously elite company for any film, let alone horror.
You see that number and you think, okay, this must be something special, something like elevated, right?
That's the natural assumption.
Yeah.
But the context around those reviews is where things get interesting.
So let's get into the premise first. What's Bone Lake actually about to get that kind of initial buzz?
The setup sounds pretty classic, almost Hitchcockian in a way, but maybe sunnier. You've got a couple. They go for a romantic getaway.
Nice remote estate, Bone Lake mansion, idyllic.
Exactly. But then, surprise, they have to share this huge place with another couple.
Ah, the mysterious, alluring other couple. I think I see where this is
Not
going.
very much. Things take a dark turn.
Yeah.
It's got Maddie Hass and Alex Rowe in it.
Recognizable faces, okay. That's a bit of gloss.
Definitely. And the positive reviews, the ones driving that 93%,
Yeah.
they really focus on how it does what it does, maybe more than what it does, if that makes sense.
How so? What kind of language are they using?
They're calling it a pulpy erotic thriller with a stylish edge.
Pulpy. Okay, see, that word jumps out. Pulpy and 93% don't usually live in the same sentence when we talk about critical darlings.
Not typically, no. So the critics aren't necessarily saying it's deep or groundbreaking. They're rewarding confidence, execution within its chosen lane.
So they're basically saying it's aiming for B-movie thrills, but it's like an A plus B movie.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The praise highlights the director, Mercedes Bryce Morgan. They talk about her flair
Flair for what?
for taking what could be, and what some critics call, a trashy thriller,
Okay.
and making it sleek and entertaining. They say it successfully mixes relationship drama, psychological tension, and, importantly, delivers the bloody payoffs.
Sleek and entertaining trash. Got it. Sounds kind of fun, actually.
And they call it wickedly fun and confidently self-aware.
Self-aware. That feels key. Like, it knows it's serving up, what did the source say? Sex, gore, and humor.
Exactly those three. And it does it with style, apparently, according
But-
to most critics.
But still, 93% is incredibly high for that kind of description. How does that stack up against other horror films this year, 2025? Is this score an outlier, or is horror just having a great year overall?
Well, that's the next layer of surprise, really, because 2025 has been a strong year for horror, and Bone Lake's score puts it right near the top.
Wait, really? So it's not just a high score in a vacuum, it's high compared to its peers this year.
Absolutely. It's currently tied with another well-regarded horror film, Companion, that's also sitting at 93%.
Okay, tied. But what's above it? What are the undisputed champs of 2025 horror so far, score-wise?
Right now, it's just behind a few heavy hitters. You've got Sinners way up at 97%,
Wow.
Ugly Stepsister at 96%, and Weapons at 94%.
Okay, so Bone Lake at 93%. It's basically rubbing shoulders with the absolute critical darlings of the year in the genre.
On paper, yes. That score puts it firmly in that top-tier conversation. Just a percentage point or two behind the leaders.
So is this film officially in the Prestige Horror Club then, based on that number alone?
Well, that's the expectation that score creates, isn't it? You see 93% alongside names like Sinners and Weapons, and you expect a certain level of, depth, thematic weight, something more than just sleek trash.
Which brings us to the other side of the coin, because that 93% means overwhelmingly positive reviews, sure, but not unanimously positive. There were detractors.
And this is where we need to dig into the nuance, right? The consensus is high, but what are the actual complaints from those who didn't love it? Because they challenge that simple A plus B movie idea.
Right, so let's look at the criticisms. You'd think an erotic thriller that gets a 93 would nail the erotic part, wouldn't you?
You would hope so, but some of the negative takes specifically called it out for being tamer than its premise suggested.
Tamer, really?
Yeah, and lacking in eroticism and depth. That feels like a pretty big miss for a film sold on that hook.
That definitely muddies the waters. And what about the thriller aspects, the script?
This is where that style over substance argument starts to creep in more forcefully. Despite the praise for the direction, some critics pointed to clunky writing.
Clunky writing, oof. In a thriller, that can kill the mood fast.
It really can. And even drawn-out explanations. That doesn't sound very sleek or confident, does it?
Oh, that sounds awkward. So, great visuals, maybe, but the script stumbles.
That seems to be the split. Some critics were maybe wowed by the look and the vibe, the sort of camp factor, and overlooked the script issues.
While others were applying more traditional standards, maybe?
Seems likely. And on top of the writing, some found the actual horror elements underwhelming.
Underwhelming horror, clunky writing, less eroticism than promise.
So the main knock from detractors was that it was uneven. It leaned too much on style, and the thrills didn't always land, even if apparently many people still enjoyed the over-the-top finale.
Okay, so this paints a much more complicated picture than just 93% is awesome.
Definitely. It suggests that while a majority of critics found it entertaining and well executed for what it is, a significant minority found serious flaws in its core components.
Which leads us directly to the most fascinating part of this whole thing. The publication's own take in the very article reporting the high score.
This is where it gets really meta, almost.
Right. The article lays out the 93%, talks about the positive buzz, mentions the stylish direction, and then it immediately pivots. It basically warns the reader not to expect this film to be on the same level as those other high scorers.
Yeah, it explicitly says, don't expect it to reach the heights of Sinners or Weapons.
It's like they're saying, okay, here's the amazing score, but maybe ignore it.
Or at least understand what it means in this context. And they spell it out. They say Bone Lake is very much a B movie.
A B movie, they actually use the term.
They do. And that it leans into camp and pulp over prestige. They're telling you exactly what kind of film it is, regardless of the score. They advise setting expectations accordingly.
That's pretty blunt, critical language within what's essentially a news report about a score. And then comes the final twist.
The publication's own rating for the film.
After reporting the 93% consensus, after defining it as a campy B movie, this specific outlet gives Bone Lake a 410.
4 out of
The
10.
gap is staggering. 93% from the critical aggregate, 4/10 from the publication reporting on it. How do we even square that?
I think that gap is the key takeaway here.
Yeah.
The 93% isn't necessarily saying this is one of the best films of the year. It's saying this is one of the most successful executions of this specific type of film, the self-aware, stylish, pulpy B movie that critics have seen this year.
So the aggregate score is grading it on a curve within its genre niche.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It reflects broad enjoyment and agreement that it achieved its specific, maybe less ambitious goals really well. It's entertaining, it's confident in its trashiness. That gets a lot of thumbs up.
And the 410.
The 410 is that one publication stepping back and saying, okay, but if we judge it against a broader standard of filmmaking, depth, originality, writing quality, the kind of things we look for in those 95% plus films, it just doesn't measure up.
Style over substance, essentially. The 93% rewards the style, the 410 penalizes the lack of substance.
Precisely. It shows how aggregate scores can reflect consensus on entertainment value within a niche, without necessarily indicating universal quality in the traditional sense.
So Bone Lake becomes this perfect case study, a film that nails its B-movie aspirations so well that it gets an A-list score from the crowd.
But individual critics, applying stricter, maybe more prestigious criteria, might still see it as, well, 410 B movie.
It really highlights the difference between most critics liked it for what it was, and this is a great film, period.
And it forces you, the listener, to think about what those scores actually represent. Are critics grading the film against its own apparent goals or against some external benchmark of cinematic art? The 93% suggests the former, the 410 suggests the latter.
So the big takeaway seems clear. Don't always assume a super high Rotten Tomatoes score, especially for genre films, means prestige or masterpiece. It often means it hit its specific targets, maybe camp, maybe pulp, maybe just pure fun really effectively for most reviewers.
Bone Lake's 93% seems to be a score for confidence, style, and entertainment value within its chosen B-movie lane, rather than for depth or thematic resonance.
Which brings us to that final thought, something for you to chew on. The source itself describes the film as intentionally leaning into camp and pulp. It stars actors like Maddie Hassan and Alex Rowe, who are presumably executing that specific vision.
Right. It's trying to be this sleek, self-aware B-movie thriller.
So, how should we judge its success? If a film sets out to be a really great piece of stylish pulp and achieves it according to many, should we judge it by the same standards we use for a serious drama aiming for profundity?
Does nailing high-quality trash deserve the same critical applause as attempting high art and maybe falling short?
Maybe the real success of Bone Lake isn't just the film itself, but the way it forces us to confront how we value different kinds of entertainment. Something to think about next time you see a surprisingly high score on a film that looks like pure B-movie fun.